There's a new update for SNAP benefits, folks, and here's a ton of information on this. Now, first of all, SNAP benefits are going to be updated this month, and especially if you're on low income or SSI, you can expect to receive a check. This October, it will be a little easier for food stamp recipients to afford groceries. According to USDA, their monthly benefits are going up from 12.5% or $100 before, and now it's going even up higher. It brings the maximum benefit for this size household to $939 a month for people of 4. And this year's cost of living adjustment is the largest annual percentage increase since the Thrifty Food Plan was developed in '75, and it stems from the massive jump in inflation since last year. Now, the director of federal SNAP policy at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities said that the COLA will put SNAP benefits better in line with the increase in the cost of food of the past year. Nearly 41 million people were enrolled in this program since June. According to the most recent USDA data, the average monthly benefit is just over $218 per person. Even with this hefty food adjustment, food stamp recipients are already falling behind since inflation has continued to rise since June. According to the most recent data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, grocery prices jumped 13.5% in August. Egg prices soared nearly 40%, while milk rose also 70% and bread jumped to 16%. Not only that, everybody, but while fruit and vegetables together are up by more than 9%, the higher costs for food are putting a strain on so many people's budgets and pockets. So also everybody, some 40% of food pantries and soup kitchens in the Feeding America network saw an increase in the number of people served in July compared with June. A recent survey conducted by the Anti-Hunger Group, another 40% said demand remained about level. Many food stamp recipients are still benefiting from a crisis relief program that Congress enacted early in the crisis, and lawmakers raised enrollees' food stamp benefits to the maximum amount for the family size, a minimum of $95 a month. Some 34 states and also Washington, D.C. still have this program in place. A separate 15% boost to benefits ended a year ago as well. And those receiving these food stamps also received a major permanent increase in benefits last year when the food plan formula was increased. And now, more than 600,000 Massachusetts households, everybody, receive the SNAP benefits. It's helping so many people right now. So for those who utilize SNAP benefits, electronic benefit transfer cards can be used at nearly 5,000 stores in the state, and monthly benefits will rise by 12%. It comes out to around $25 to $30 a person. Those who are receiving this maximum benefit of $250 a month will now be receiving $281. And a bill to avoid the government shutdown has already passed, and so now people will be receiving more stimulus payments, while Democrats and Republicans gather around and try to get things.
Thank you. Director Pagel, in your testimony, you were mentioning several specific things that you would like to see in the bill. It wasn't clear to me if you were commenting on points that have already been incorporated or points that you think still need to be incorporated.
These are points that we think still need to be incorporated, and we're looking forward to working with the sponsors, you all on the committee, and Chris and others to make sure that any Good Samaritan legislation is really protective. We're working directly with communities on the ground who have been impacted by mine waste or mining, and we would just want to make sure that downstream communities, especially Indigenous communities, are adequately protected and that there's not some unintended consequences. Earthworks, Chris was reminding me that the first time we testified together on this issue supporting Good Samaritan liability relief was 2006. Not that much has changed, except maybe now I wear these reading glasses. But the liability relief that Good Samaritans want is something that we support and want to work to make sure that any bill that passes gives that liability relief, but also really protects water and communities on the ground.
Thank you. And Director Wood, it's been mentioned that you've been engaged in this conversation for a long time, and earlier testimony said this was first looked at in the early 1990s. What has been the primary concern that has prevented this from becoming law previously?
Senator, I think it goes back to something I suggested earlier. The Clean Water Act and CERCLA are two of our most important environmental laws, and I think people have been concerned that we would somehow use this effort to weaken those bedrock environmental laws. And I think another issue is that people were concerned about the scope and the scale of permitting a Good Samaritan program writ large. And while I agree with Jim that we do need to do that, ultimately the beauty of this bill is that it's 15 pilots over 7 years. And so we can actually learn from the work over the next 15 years and then take those lessons learned and apply it more broadly.
I'm trying to remember the details, and I'm not remembering them of a previous environmental accident. And I wasn't sure if it happened during an attempted remediation, but I think it was a mine that was full of water that was contaminated that was released into a stream and caused some devastation. Can you remind us of that, and how do we avoid that, something like that happening again?
So that was I think that was the Animus. I mean, it happens every day, to be clear. It's happening on tens of thousands of abandoned mines. But on that one, there was a cleanup, a contractor to the EPA, I believe, that was cleaning up some big adits that were plugged, and they gave. But it's important that kind of a cleanup, that's not these. We're talking about lower risk projects, not projects that would qualify for Superfund cleanup. These are mostly tailings piles or draining adits, which are much smaller in scope and scale.
And Ms. Piccolo, is that the kind of thing that is in your mind when you're concerned about potential downstream impacts?
Yes, there's always, I think the focus on low-risk projects and the pilot projects is great and will hopefully mitigate anything like the Gold King mine disaster in Colorado happening. But just, things do go wrong, and just making sure that there's adequate protection if water quality is made significantly worse than it was previously is something that we remain concerned about, and we want to make sure that there are adequate protections.
Good afternoon, everyone. I, like a lot of others, had a chance to be at home last week. Won't surprise you to know that everybody's concerned about inflation, food prices, gas prices, and without exception, every employer I ran into, whether it's a large business or a small business, is having difficulty getting people to come back to work. A real dilemma, and I think all of that is a result of the $2 trillion the other guys dumped on the economy last week against the advice.
Last month, the government reported America's employers added 428,000 jobs in April, leaving the unemployment rate at 3.6%, just above the lowest level in half a century. Hiring gains have also been consistent in the face of the worst inflation in 4 decades, with employers adding at least 400,000 jobs for 12 straight months. The government's May jobs report will be released tomorrow, with many expecting that 400,000 jobs added streak to be broken. This week, a separate government employment report said that the number of job openings across the economy went a little bit lower in April, but remains much higher. A big update on changes to Social Security, SSI and SSDI. The U.S. Treasury Department just released a brand new statement in regards to whether millions of Social Security recipients will see a benefit increase or a $1,400 stimulus check. According to an updated report published by the government earlier today, the Social Security Trust Fund that most Americans rely on for their retirement will be able to continue to pay out benefits on a timely basis until 2034. That is 1 year later than the Treasury Department estimated last year. This improved analysis, signed by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Labor Secretary, projects that the government's disability insurance program will be able to pay full benefits over the next 75 years. This is the first time Social Security officials have issued such a rosy outlook since their 1983 report. Last year's report estimated that the Disability Insurance Trust Fund would be depleted in 2057. The department said that Medicare Part A will remain fully financed through 2028, 2 years later than previously expected. Yellen and Walsh expected and explained that the improved outlooks for the various funds are due to a faster and more robust economic recovery from the crisis. Two White House officials wrote the main reasons for the small deficit are a stronger than expected recovery from the crisis-induced recession, higher expected levels of labor productivity, and lower future disability incidence rates that reflect recent experience. The Treasury Department looks after 2 Social Security funds, the Old Age and Survivors Insurance and Disability Insurance Trust Funds. 2 programs were created to provide a source of income to former workers who have retired at the end of their careers and to those who cannot work due to disability. According to the official statement by the government, changes were made to near-term economic data and assumptions reflecting that the recovery of employment, earnings, and GDP from the recession has been faster and stronger than projected in last year's report, resulting in higher payroll tax receipts and higher revenue from income taxation of Social Security benefits. Despite the revised projections and given broad demographic trends in an aging population, the financial outlook for Social Security is largely funded by payroll taxes. It's bad without government intervention or changes for the country's tax code. The various funds act as pillars, upholding the retirement plans of tens of millions of people, the most popular safety net programs in the US. If Congress fails to act by the time the main Social Security Trust Fund is depleted, federal law would automatically cut benefit checks for retirees by about 20% across the board. Many Americans also expected to receive checks totaling up to $4,200 this month. The average benefit has also increased by about $143 per month to around $1,800, while the maximum benefit increase